Hello YouTube, this is Sam Gerrans from quarternight.com. Today's Saturday 29th of April 2017, and today I just want to talk briefly on the subject of Christians. Now, I don't want to offend anyone particularly, that's not my intention, but I do need to speak quite plainly, and in order to speak plainly it means I have to say what I think, and what I think may offend some people, and if that's the case, well, perhaps you're better off not listening to this channel, because I do speak plainly. Now, I'm going to get on to Christians in my experience of them over the last few years, but I can preface this by saying that I come personally from a Christian background. I was born in a Christian society, and I'm quite glad that I was, but I came to see through the Christian scriptures quite quickly, and if you are a Christian, then, okay, that's your decision. The Quran tells me, La ikraha fid din. There is no compulsion in doctrine. You may believe what you wish. But I've had so many pushy and somewhat deceptive Christians that I just feel I want to address this in one fell swoop, so that I can just send this link to the next person who does the same thing and not have to get into it again, because it's really, really quite tedious. So the first point is I know the Christian scriptures really well, and I'm extremely clear on why I don't accept them. I do think there are some words of Jesus, the original prophet, some sort of vestigial words in there somewhere. However, in my opinion, in my considered opinion, the New Testament, so-called, was cobbled together by the Flavians is a piece of agitprop. The Apostle Paul, quite frankly, is laughable. If you look at the quotes that Paul ascribes and somehow tries to insinuate and arrogate to the personality called Jesus, and then you look in the Tanakh, in the Jewish Bible, you find that they either are misquoted, illogical, or just so badly translated that they don't bear any correlation to what's being said in the original. That's also true, with all due respect, to the quotes which the Christians like to quote ad nauseum from Isaiah and various other places. What they're doing is going to the Jewish Bible and sort of trying to attach this faith created in another place to it, and claim that it is indigenous to it or somehow incipient within it. This is not the case. The case is that these are completely different ideologies. We hear talk about the Judeo-Christian religion or Judeo-Christian civilization. There's nothing in common between Judeo and Christian. They're utterly different paradigms. The paradigm of the Jewish Bible is very close to that of the Quran. In fact, it's identical. It's Hear, O Israel, the Lord your God is one God. Now, I don't see there's anything to be misunderstood within that statement. Nowhere in the whole of the Jewish scriptures do we see the idea of the Trinity, which is central to the Christian narrative. Nowhere. It's not there. It's not really anywhere very explicitly in the Christians' so-called scriptures. It's certainly nowhere found in the words ascribed to Jesus. However, if you're stopped in the street, as I was again today, by a smiling, sort of nice Christian who wanted to tell me all about Jesus, I never go up to these people. I never start a conversation with them, and I invariably ask them, I say, do you want to get into this? And they'll say yes. Okay. So I let them talk, and then I answer them, and generally it goes like this. They'll start telling me about John 3:16, which, if you don't have a Christian background, is God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life. Now, this isn't the words of Jesus. This isn't even the words of John, because the gospel ascribed to John, nobody knows who wrote that. Nobody knows who wrote any of the gospels. It may be a bit of a shock to you if you're from a Christian background, but, these are facts as opposed to feelings. What Christians have, and they do have, is feelings. And fine. It's really, to be quite honest, I find that the whole Christian thing, it's like the precursor to political correctness and this whole safe space environment. They have a feeling. They can't explain it. They can't defend it, not really. And if you ask them to explain their position, eventually they basically go, Yabu sucks, you're a nasty person. Which is kind of crap, if you don't mind me saying so. If you're going to go out, put yourself about there and stop people in the street to have a conversation. So typically the Christian will stop me. He'll say, have you considered this? Or quite indirect. The guy today, for example, had this leaflet which didn't even say anything about Jesus, but it had stuff about living on it. And then I read it at home. It got into about life is difficult, and obviously the solution is God. Fine, okay, I'm all right with that. And then they slip Jesus in, and now Jesus is God, and now you have to pray this prayer that's nowhere found in the Bible. It's bait and switch. It's quite similar to what the Muslims do with the Quran Hadith. They start you off with one thing, and then before you know it, you're into something else. It's the practice of deceit upon people. In the Muslim form, it takes one sort of form. The problem with the Christian form is it looks kind of cuddly and nice, and it's very sympathetic. It's not wild-eyed, long-bearded, and got some sort of dagger and is going to cut your throat if you don't accept it. These people look like the worst they're going to do to you is, just ply you with tea and biscuits until you pop. But they're really quite nasty. This is my point. I mean, the guy today stops me. So I go, okay, do you want to get into this? Okay. I let him give it his best shot. So he's telling me about God and this. And I say to him, do you believe that God is one God? Yes, he believes God is one God. Okay, fine. So, that's his position. God is one God. I've asked him a question. God is one God. All right, fine. So I say, well, what is your claim for Jesus then? Well, Jesus is the Son of God. I said, well, what do you mean by son? Do you mean of the same nature? Yes. So I go back to God. I say, well, do you agree that God is eternal, uncreated, and the creator of all that is, the only creating and creative being of everything that there is, infinite, without beginning and end? Yes, he does. Okay, fine. How can then I ask him, as I invariably do, because this is quite a shortcut to through the sort of maze of this doublethink. How can an uncreated, an omnipotent, all creative being have another like it? First of all, he couldn't compute because so unused is he to actually thinking that this did. I had to go through it 2 or 3 times to get him to get it. And then we get into the Trinity thing. The Trinity. It's really the last refuge of the man with absolutely no intellectual integrity, isn't it? It's foolishness, it's deceit, and to claim, as he did, that the cornerstone of his religion, which he'd started off by saying there's some sort of real external argument for, is something that and I quote him, our finite minds cannot understand. So actually what this is about is nothing to do with any kind of reality, any kind of analysis, anything that you can give to somebody else. It boils down to this amorphous thing that nobody can understand, nobody can explain, is not found in the Jewish scriptures, is not found in the Christian scriptures. He can't explain and he cannot impart to me, and that's the cornerstone of it all. And this is one individual. These Christians are everywhere, and they are aggressive, deceptive. Not all Christians. You do get Christians who accept that it's nonsense. Well, they accept that they can't explain it, and that's fine. You have a nice, warm, tingly feeling inside of you. You ascribe to Jesus. You're welcome to it. However, it's not something that you can impart to me because you can't explain it. You do have a relationship with Jesus, whatever Jesus is. Might get into that later on in this if I have got the stomach for it. However, it's not something you can explain to me. It's not something you can give to somebody else. So stop pretending that you can. Also, your scriptures, to be fair, they bear no relationship to the Old Testament. The Jews for thousands of years were the only monotheists on the face of the earth. Now, up until the moment that you claim that Jesus died, they were the people of God. There's no question about it. You then claim, and not all Christians make this claim, but this is, the kind of fundamentalist typical argument, is that Jesus died for your sins. Now, as I said to this chap today, I said, was Jesus God? Yes or no? Yes, Jesus is God. So I say to him, you're telling me that God died. He doesn't quite know what to do with this. Because if he says yes, it means that God died. That's a ludicrous statement. If he says no, it means Jesus was not God. And now what he's getting into is, the old Catholic Church, the triune Godhead. I said to him, well, if there are three personalities within one, you're really saying that they're three gods. No, they're not. They're one God, but they're made up of three parts. I said, well, if there are three parts, why can there not be 4 parts, 10 parts, 27 parts? Couldn't answer that. And no Christian can, and he can't because it doesn't make any sense. And the great church fathers acknowledged that. However, all kinds of people believe all kinds of insane lunatic things, and that's all fine. But what I find about Christianity in its present incarnation, and I'm talking really about so-called fundamentalist types of Christians, is that they are very aggressive and usually, not always, but often very ignorant of anything outside of their very limited perceptions. And they're the ones who start this. I never start a conversation with a Christian. I come from a Christian background. I know what the mindset is. It's incredibly narrow. However, they will start the conversation with you. But when they do start it, they don't want to continue it. And what they'll do is they'll turn away as though there's something awful about you. It's not there's something awful about me. The truth of the matter is that you just can't explain the thing that you purport to be selling. But I'll tell you what you're selling, okay? I'll tell you what you're selling if you are one of these Christians. What you're selling is you're selling polytheism. This is a fundamental sin against God, the one God, the God of Israel, the God that you claim to believe. Actually, you make claims about, for example, the Quran, which are completely just lunatic. And what you do quite often, what these people often do, they've listened to someone like Pastor Steven Anderson. If you haven't listened to him, please check the guy out. It's a riot. Pastor Steven Anderson has, he's an articulate fundamentalist Baptist. He's no fool. However, he's not a complex person. He doesn't pretend to be. He's a showman, and he's got a nice presentation if you are really in the mood for, a black and white view of everything. His presentation of the Quran is, you have to understand where he's coming from. He's gone to the worst kind of proponents of hadith-based Islam, accepted wholesale what these people say, and then jumped on top of the Quran on the basis of that. This is something I'm fundamentally not fighting, but I'm just exposing as being completely spurious. I'm not talking about Pastor Steven Anderson. I'm talking about the hadith-based decapitation of the Quranic message. I have had experiences quite recently with particular kinds of so-called Christians. They say, you defend the Quran, therefore you're defending this mad Islam. So you come back and you say, no, I'm not defending that mad Islam. What I'm doing is I'm analysing the Quran on its own merits. Please look at my work. They don't want to look at your work. They want to impose upon you. They want to tell you what it is that you believe and then attack you for believing it. And when you point out that that isn't what you believe, then you're just splitting hairs. And what was very interesting to me about this, and this is a particular individual, I've had to block him because he's just irritating and, he's just a drain on resources. But one particular guy on the YouTube channel, is that I realized, and this is really why I decided to make this video, because I think this is an interesting point. I realized that this Christianity is really a setup for the kind of fascism that's coming. I noticed from the liberals, the liberal politically corrected, people, the exact same mechanism. They will define your argument, or any argument, in fact, in terms of an extremely narrow area, circumference, and then insist that any sort of discussion happens within that predefined area or circumference, not allowing that there might be some things that they have not considered outside of this. I'll tell you the people I don't get this from. I don't get this from people who come from an Orthodox background, and I'm talking here about Russian Orthodox, Eastern Church. You don't find that there. It's a different kind of mindset. You don't get it from Jews. You might agree with them, you don't agree with them, but they have a kind of elastic ability to comprehend things that are outside their own, perhaps narrow, perhaps broad point of view. They have more of a pragmatic approach. But the Western Church, let's be honest, Protestantism is an outgrowth of Catholicism. I find Catholics less like this in some ways. But this Protestant kind of Calvinistic, Baptist, fundamentalist Christian thing is very similar to this liberal fascism. And it's the insistence that any discussion happen within a very, very small little area, an area which they define. It's like they're saying to you, are you a child molester or a murderer? Is it A or B? And you say, look, I'd like to answer your question, but my answer does not fit within the remit of this question, the way it's framed. They don't want it. They only want that. And these are the mechanics. These are the sort of tactics of either highly brainwashed people or very deceitful people, or both, because they go together. My experiences with people who've claimed to be Christian have been, quite honestly, I have a very low opinion of them. I don't find them intellectually honest. I don't find them impressive. I find them they just basically hide in their little corner and bang on about the scriptures within their own kind of canon. It's sophistry. It's true because it's true. My scripture says it's true, so therefore it's true. That isn't an argument. Your argument does not connect with the Jewish scriptures. If you ask a Jew about Christianity, they're just in absolute horror over it. I absolutely recommend you look up a guy called, and I don't agree with him on every single thing, but on the Christian point, he's absolutely bang on, a guy called Rabbi Tovia Singer. If you're a Christian and you're sincere, it may be a difficult concept if you've been in it for a long time, but if you've got doubts as to, the terrible contradictions that are found right across the Gospels, they're just there. They're there. And, academics know they're there. Historians know they're there. Real theologians know they're there. But, if you're claiming that this is the inerrant word of God, that can't possibly be true. There are so many errors in it. It's just ludicrous. Before I even get into Paul, okay, that's up to you. But can you just stay off my channel? If you want to come on and tell us all about how wonderful Jesus is, go somewhere else and do it, because the people on this channel tend to have a critical mind. They tend to want to use their brains, and coming in, waving 316 around like a sort of football rattle, and then getting very emotional when people don't take it the way you want it. You're wasting your time. It's spam. What I suggest you do, now I'm going to get into the areas of things that you can do. Start your own website using your own name, your own YouTube channel using your own name and your own photograph, and tell us all about it. And if it's good, we'll come and listen to it. We'll listen to your presentation. But if you're not going to consider the work that I've done, for example, this is really what this channel is about, 536,000 words of close analysis. I'm not really interested in your feelings. You may feel that Jesus is the best thing since sliced bread. Your feelings are not the most important thing to me. We have a society at the moment which is actually being directed exactly by the same thing, unthinking feelings. The whole of this gender fluidity, enforced homosexuality, it's all about feelings, and that's how that's being guided. There's no real analysis behind it, certainly no morality behind it. With what you've got, it's very similar. Now, if that hurts your feelings, I don't care. But I'm really sick of hearing about it, especially as you can't back it up. And, just claiming that you have something and Jesus said this and Paul said that and this is scripture. I don't accept it as evidence. Okay, I don't accept it as evidence because it contradicts the plainest statements. Let's leave the Quran to one side for a moment. In the Tanakh, hear, O Israel, the Lord your God is one God. Nothing about three in there. Look at the 10 commandments. What's the first commandment? You're breaking the commandments. It's idolatry. You want to be an idolater? That's fine by me. But please don't tell me that this is in any way connected with Judaism, because it isn't. Please don't tell me that you've got any real intellectual foundation for it, because you haven't. What you've got are feelings, and that's all you've got. And that's fine. But that's not something you can use in an argument. You can accept with your wife. So please keep it there. I pray that you will do some real research, but I do know that God guides or he doesn't guide. It's not my affair. All I can say is I'm really tired of listening to it. I don't care about it. And if you want to spam people over it, fine, go ahead. But I'm going to block you because this isn't the place for it. Have some balls. Have some strength. Stand up and do your own thing in your own, in your own place. But we'll see what you've got then. But just going on to other channels and spamming your little quotes, it doesn't make you an evangelist. It doesn't make you some sort of Jesus warrior. You're not beating back the infidels or whatever it is you think you're doing. You're just very sad and frankly a coward, unless you're basically standing up, speaking out on your own behalf, using your own name. I don't have any respect for you. And I don't have any respect for your ideology. I do know it. I've really studied it. I was in it. I know why I'm not in it. And my last thing would be, if you are a sincere Christian, if you're sincere, if you've listened this far and you're a sincere person, check out Tovia Singer. I'll see if I can find a link to his channel and put it in the description. Go and watch 10 of his videos and study what he says. He's not a Muslim, all right? Whatever you think, Muslim is. He's not one of those. But he will educate you into why I'm certainly not a Christian. And perhaps we can leave this subject because I find it very boring. That's all for now. If you're listening on YouTube, you can download my full translation of the Quran free using the button in the top right-hand corner, or buy the hardback. They're at 10% less than on Amazon. I also encourage you to sign up for the Quranite Plus newsletter on the site to get occasional micro updates. Like if you like, comment if you have something constructive to say, and subscribe to get more each week. And use the link in the drop down below to donate if you would like to help me keep doing this. And remember, this life is short, eternity is long. If you want good trees, plant good seeds.